If you and your friends were captured by a cult of murderous hill people, what would you do? I'm going to break down the mistakes made by our woke hikers, try to make better decisions, and ultimately attempt to beat the mountain men in Wrong Turn. Father of the Year Scott Shaw has arrived to a podunk town in rural Virginia, where the locals mount deer carcasses on the hoods of their trunks. He's here searching for his missing daughter, Jen. We learn Jen and 5 of her friends arrived 6 weeks earlier to hike a portion of the Appalachian Trail and have been MIA ever since. Scott checks the inn and local shops, ultimately ending up in the town's only bar, where Nate admits he's seen Scott's daughter, but that he's better off not looking for her. Nate tells Scott that nature eats everything it catches, right down to the bone. Scott's dedication is admirable, but his method seems slapshot at best. Before coming here, Scott should have found the nearest town with either an FBI field office or a National Park Service station and told them that Jen is missing. Even though the Appalachian Trail runs nearly 2,200 miles from Georgia to Maine, it's managed by the National Park Service, U.S. Forest Service, Appalachian Trail Conservancy, and numerous state agencies. Hikers consistently get lost or go missing on the trail. One went missing from the exact area Wrong Turn is set in as recently as January of 2022. The point is Jen and 5 other people have been missing for 6 weeks. Scott and the other terrible parents of these hikers should have filed missing persons reports with local law enforcement the first week the group went missing. Hell, Mila later nearly dies trying to take a selfie. You're telling me her family didn't suddenly notice her social media running dry? As I've said before, there is no waiting period to file a missing persons report. Had Scott filed one, it might have triggered active interest in the area, because as we'll see later, dozens of hikers have gone missing in this area in the last few months. And while I don't think Scott and Jen have the sort of relationship where she would tell him her iCloud information, if he had it, he could use it to at least identify the last place her phone was located before it died or was broken and start his search there. Additionally, instead of getting confrontational with Nate, Scott should ask him to show him on the map where he last saw Jen and her group, and to explain why the area is so dangerous. Scott is in the discovery section of his search for answers, which means gathering any and all details he can to shorten his search. We flash back to the hiking trip 6 weeks earlier to meet Jen, her boyfriend Darius, and their 4 friends Adam, Mila, Gary, and Lewis. When their SUV gets a flat, Jen gets out to change the tire, and we see someone watching the group from the woods. In town, Jen and her friends check in at the inn, and the innkeeper cryptically cautions Jen to stick to the marked trails, as the forest can be unforgiving. While drinking at the town watering hole, Nate approaches the group and offers his services as guides along the Appalachian Trail. When Adam makes fun of him, the locals turn on them, accusing them of being useless hipsters and everything wrong with the world today. Jen fires back that they actually all have real jobs, and then gets Mila to diagnose Nate's yellow eyes as a serious medical condition he should get checked immediately. The night winds down. All seems forgotten until the group wanders back towards their inn. They spot a man peering into their SUV. Adam yells at him to leave, tosses a bottle. It shatters at the stranger's feet. A moment later, when the group looks back, the stranger's vanished. The encounter in the bar is definitely creepy, but in small towns like this, where everyone knows everyone and their only form of entertainment is shooting deer and watching tourists, it's a good idea to stay on people's good sides. It goes without saying that you shouldn't pick fights with rednecks in bars. That's how you end up the sole savior of a hijacked flight of psychotic convicts. As for the lurker outside their car, if they hadn't been rude to Nate in the bar, they'd have no reason to think that they're in danger from this guy now. Nate might have actually warned them about survivalist cults picking off stray tourists in the woods. Also, definitely don't throw a bottle when you see someone like this near your car. It's not illegal to peer into other people's cars, and throwing a beer bottle is assault in most states. In Virginia, it's punished by up to a year in prison and a $2,500 fine. Or later, having your eyes gouged out of your head, depending on which judge you get. During pillow talk, Darius tells Jen that he works in a non-profit because he wants to essentially create a utopian community free from racism, sexism, or struggle. As they get busy, a shadowy figure lurks outside their window, watching. In the morning, Jen has her first encounter with the Foundation when she meets Edith and Ruthie. Later, the group begins their hike down the Appalachian Trail. At a certain point, Darius tells the group about a nearby Civil War monument in the woods that he wants to check out. Jen remembers the innkeeper's warning, but she's the only holdout in the group, and Darius reminds her they've technically been dipping off the trail all day to visit waterfalls and cliffs. She finally agrees. In the sticks, their beginner's hike ratchets up to intermediate levels. Hours pass. They have to climb over fallen trees, and Mila nearly slides off a cliff trying to take a selfie. Darius says they've already left the trail twice, so maybe this is a 3 strikes and you're out situation. Leaving a trail you've never hiked before in an area you don't know well is yuppie stupid, especially when 2 locals have warned you about venturing off the beaten path. It's doubly dumb because they don't seem to have brought a map or a compass with them. Phones die and lose signal. Clearly, terrain changes in the blink of an eye, and Mila's nearly walked off a cliff already. Without a map, they'll need to define an emergency azimuth for themselves. An emergency azimuth is a large landmark, like a river or trail, you can use to triangulate your location when you're lost. Ideally, you would have a compass, but it can be done without one, so long as you know which direction you're moving in. Here, for example, if they left the trail heading east and walked in a straight line, they would know that to return to the trail, they just need to head west. The problem here is that they walk for hours, meaning their identifying landmark has disappeared behind rock slides and fallen trees and cliffs. The benefit of defining a long emergency azimuth is that by changing the direction of travel, at some point they should find the trail again, even if they don't arrive back in the same spot. Darius tells the others to go back without him when they hear a loud thumping sound from the ridge above them. Suddenly, a massive log barrels down the slope towards them. For some reason, they run down the hill in the path of the plummeting crush wagon, and every single member of the group trips, falls, or crashes into things. They're slammed into trees and rocks before Gary is ultimately crushed to death. After their fall, Mila picks a fight with Adam for leaving her by running down the hill first. Darius's finger is dislocated. Worst of all, Lewis finds Gary with his pancaked face. Darius wants to climb back up the ridge to search for reception on his cell phone, but Lewis picks a fight and Jen notices a boy watching them from the ridge. Well, these guys are college graduates, all right. Graduates from the Prometheus school of running away from things. Running away from a trunk of death makes a basic sort of sense, given their fear and how fast the tree is tumbling towards them. But ideally, you would have enough forethought to run perpendicular to the tree, easily dodging it as it continues down the hill. But at bare minimum, they should have run at a 45-degree angle diagonally away from the log. This allows them to increase the distance between them and the tree while also getting out of the way. Gary simply didn't have the cat-like reflexes to jump out of the way in the few seconds he had here, and it's possible the tree trunk would have hit the tree behind him and spun around, injuring him anyways, if he had rolled to either side. In the aftermath, however, this group needs to make some very fast and important decisions. This log didn't accidentally launch itself off the hill as they were passing by. It was moving too fast. There was no loud crashing sound to warn them that a tree had fallen, and it happened to roll exactly where all 6 of them were walking. Combine that with their creepy stalkers, and it's time to recognize this for what it really is, a booby trap. If they didn't bring anything like a camping hatchet with them for the hike, each of them should be picking up a branch or rock for protection. They should also try to re-establish a new emergency azimuth, and they should travel downhill with the goal of locating a river or stream to follow and leave the area. Water naturally flows downhill, so even though they can't see a stream or river from their current position, it's likely that by traveling directly down the hill, they will eventually find one and can follow it to a road or town. On the trek to find town, a rainstorm hits and the group takes shelter in their tent. In the middle of the night, Jen's awoken by thunder. Lightning reveals someone standing outside their tent. In the morning, Mila is missing and so are all their phones. Adam realizes they've been sleeping in a graveyard, and Darius finds a plaque commemorating the establishment of the Foundation, a collective of 12 families that agreed to form a community before the start of the Civil War. The group begins to panic, and Jen reveals she saw someone outside the tent. If you were smart enough to bring a compass on your hike on the Appalachian Trail, then a little rain wouldn't be enough to stop you. Most quality compasses account for night navigation with glow-in-the-dark paint, but even if yours doesn't, a phone flashlight app will do. Even without one, the rain makes finding a stream or river slightly easier, while also being a little riskier. They'll have to be careful to avoid slipping and flash floods, but going downhill now while it's raining guarantees that they'll come to some sort of natural waterway at the bottom. When they get there, they can follow the water as it flows down the mountain, eventually taking them to a road or town. If Jen and her group are going to camp to wait out the storm, they should have a guard posted by the tent throughout the night. A rotation of 4 sleeping and 2 as lookouts would prevent the theft of the phones and ensure no one sneaks up and murks them in their sleep. It would also make it impossible for Mila to go missing without somebody seeing it. Adam goes full Rambo and tears into the forest to find Mila, saying that people are probably watching them right now. Jen encounters Ruthie, but Adam's aggression scares her off. Adam chases her into a clearing where something trips him. A chain has somehow locked itself around Adam's leg, and he's dragged screaming into a tunnel in the forest floor. Darius gets Lewis to hold his legs to look inside, but they're kept back by a snake. Darius wants to scare the snake away, thinking the tunnel might lead to a mine, but Jen warns him the trap was laid by someone who probably wants them to follow Adam down the creepy hole in the forest. Because they don't have cell reception or GPS, Jen ties a blue plaid shirt to a stick as a hole marker and leads Lewis and Darius away. Adam's drama hard is going to get them killed by walking off an unseen cliff long before the Foundation has a chance to get a hold of them. Ruthie isn't their biggest priority right now. She's not acting like somebody in need of rescue. She knows these woods, which means she knows where all the traps are, and following her is a terrible idea. And with Adam rampaging after her, it's not like she's gonna tell us anything even if we do catch her. More importantly, we're lost. It doesn't do anyone any good to get separated from the group. If Mila has been taken, they have a better chance of saving her together than apart. Right now, we don't know where Mila is, but we do know where Adam is, and getting him out of the hole in the forest is a goal we can all work toward together. This appears to be a North Pine snake, which is a native to Virginia and non-venomous. Of course, none of these hikers would know that, and I'm guessing most of us wouldn't either. There's only 4 types of venomous snakes in the United States: rattlesnakes, copperheads, cottonmouth, and moccasin types, and coral snakes. None of them are intentionally aggressive. They only attack when provoked. Going after Adam, or at least checking deep enough to know that the tunnel is too large to search, makes sense here. The group could just use 2 sticks to help guide the snake out of the tunnel, or in a pinch, they could just bash its brains in. The remaining 3 arrive to a gnarly old barn full of tools and discarded piles of things that are clearly stolen from tourists, like sunglasses and cameras. They hear a noise and duck just as 2 hill people in ghillie suits wearing deer skull masks pass by, carrying an unconscious Adam on a branch between them. Darius grabs a hammer and confronts them. The men speak Faroese, a Danish dialect from the Faroe Islands. Jen and Louise appear, wielding a sickle and a hatchet. As both sides argue in different languages, Adam suddenly rises up behind one of the hill people and clubs him to death with a branch they used to carry him. When Darius and Lewis pull Adam back, the other Foundation member is gone. Adam tries to rationalize his kill, that he only killed the guy because he killed Mila. Suddenly, Mila appears behind them. She freaks out when she sees what Adam has done and tells him that she had just gone to seeing the 2 men in ghillie suits and didn't call out for fear that the men would hear. Captain Obvious Jen asks Adam the most movie-driven question ever. Did you just kill this man for no reason? Adam reminds her that they had him strung up like a deer for roasting and dragged him into a hole in the forest, probably to kill him. The others side with Adam and they agree to leave the body and forget this ever happened. Jen picks a fight about morality as they search for a way down the mountain. Finding a stockpile of large amounts of touristy items is a massive red flag. This isn't just a lost and found pile. This is a death pile. The types of piles you get when you strip similar groups of people of their belongings. The easiest way to test whether this is just gathered junk or an intentionally collected pile is to look at the shoes. Very few people lose complete pairs of shoes. If these are complete pairs, then they were stolen, not found, and we should be very cautious about anyone we encounter near here. Before running off, the group should be looking through these materials for anything that they can use, not just weapons, but cell phones, GPS trackers, maps, ropes, and compasses. As for running off to confront the men who have Adam, it's brave, but also loses us the element of surprise. Darius also runs off so fast he can't get his friends to help him, forcing them to play catch up. Instead, they should have made a quick plan to ambush these men. Darius can sneak up on the guy in the rear, while Jen and Lewis move ahead of the guy up front. Once in position, a single blow to the head or to the legs could incapacitate both men at once, or or at least let all 3 of the team provide backup if one of the Foundationists fight back. It's better to incapacitate rather than kill here, because they don't know what they're dealing with, how many are nearby, or where Mila is until she suddenly reappears. Restraining them means they can interrogate them in for information, or force them to guide them off the mountain, or potentially use them as bargaining chips. As for Mila, we all know what happens when you wander off alone for a bathroom break. Not only should she have within sight of the camp, she should have asked Jen or Adam to go with her, or just let them know where she was going. If she had been taken by the cult, Adam's sudden bloodlust would have likely meant her untimely demise anyways, out of retribution if nothing else. None of it matters now though. Now that they've killed someone and let the only witness go, they need to get down off this mountain as if their lives depend on it, because they definitely do. Jen can have her moral outrage monologue on the way, as flimsy as it is, considering all the circumstantial evidence so far suggesting these hill people are laying traps to crush intruders or yank them into holes using ankle chains or truss them like dressed deer carcasses. When Darius confronted the men in the ghillie suits, they didn't act like they were just trying to help. They postured and intimidated. Even if they didn't speak English, it would have been an easy gesture to untie Adam to show that they meant no harm. As the group tries to put Jen's argument behind them, Darius triggers a drop trap and gets spiked in the chest, but they're quickly on their way again thanks to Mila's first aid. Further down the trail, however, they pass a deep camouflage Foundationist who'd give Peeta from the Hunger Games a run for his money. He sneaks up on Lewis and spirits him away. People suddenly surround them, and Adam takes off again, with Mila hot on his trail. Darius and Jen stick around just long enough to see half a dozen other Foundation members in ghillie suits emerge from the forest floor. The tumbling tree log of death might be written off as an accident, but the chain around Adam's ankle and then suddenly finding himself trussed up for a roast can't be. This mountain is dangerous and full of holes and sudden falls. Every single one of these hikers should be tapping the ground in front of them with a walking stick. In unfamiliar terrain like this, situational awareness and hedging your bets will save your life. Keep a lookout for straight lines, like this tripwire, which aren't naturally occurring in nature. They should also have weapons. Did anyone notice that despite having an axe, sickle, and hammer just minutes ago, everyone is suddenly unarmed? That's right, they abandoned their weapons. If they had been armed, Lewis might have at least been able to flail or strike something on his attacker to let the others know that he was being taken. Darius, Jen, Adam, and Mila would also have been able to mount a defensive circle with their backs to each other, working as a team to prevent an attack, instead of running blindly into a forest they know is lined with deadly traps. Right on cue, Mila falls into a punji pit, impaling herself on spikes. Adam hovers over the hole, whimpering and doing nothing, before finally abandoning Mila to her fate, which is sealed immediately as the Deer Mask Foundation member fires an arrow straight into her head. Karma won't let that go. As just a few hundred feet away, Adam trips over a wire, and the hill people have him bagged and tagged in no time. Darius and Jen are chased into a rock gorge and try to hide in a cave when a Foundationist grabs Jen's shoulder, scaring them into the open. A hand reaches down and grabs Darius out of the gorge, and Jen comes face to face with another masked maniac, who slams her head into the rock wall, knocking her out. This is what panicking and dropping your weapons gets you. Instead of working as a team with weapons in hand and some semblance of logic on their side, they let the Foundation pick them off one by one. Mila's toast after her fall. The spikes are likely the only thing keeping her from bleeding out, and it would take more time and far more bravery than Adam has to drop into the hole and lift Mila out while keeping the spikes intact. Even then, her best chance would be to remain still and calm while others go for help, but of course, no one's going to have the chance to do that. As fast as Adam was running, his only chance would probably have been to have a weapon on him when he fell, which he could try to use with very little success. The way Darius is lifted out of this little gorge, whoever grabbed him has a strength of 10 men, and his only chance would have been to have a weapon on him as well. As for Jen, if she had the situational awareness to run the second Darius was taken, she could have probably made it out of the gorge, but without the ability to slowly clear the traps ahead of her down the mountain, she would probably have ended up impaled long before she found rescue. A brief intermission with Scott and the family he ignores while he tries to win his daughter's love lets us know that Jen has now been missing for 2 weeks. Jen wakes up in a deep stone-lined pit, tied at the wrists with rope and stripped to her underwear. She calls out for help, and Edith warns her to be quiet. Time passes, and food is lowered along with a pail of water and a collapsible ladder. Jen climbs out to find Adam, Darius, and Lewis bound nearby. Burlap sacks are thrown over their heads, and Edith takes them through a Wicker Man field to a fortified village. The group is forced into some sort of earthen courtroom lit by torchlight. Edith tells him to kneel, and when Darius refuses, he's beaten to the floor. Suddenly, the community elders enter and remove their deer masks. The leader, Venable, tells them they're on trial for murder and that only Jen can speak. When Lewis panics, they threaten to cut his tongue out. Two Foundationists step forward to speak against the group. They claim this was all a misunderstanding. Morgan and his brother Samuel had been hunting when their chain snagged something. They went to check it out and found Adam unconscious, so they decided to carry him into town where they were going to leave him. Then the rest of the group appeared and Adam clubbed Samuel to death. Jen tries to tell the leader that they were scared of the hunter's outfits and didn't know that they were helping. Venable tells her the masks and ghillie suits are used to hunt. He asks her if Adam killed Samuel. They warn her that terrible things will happen if she lies. Jen tells them Adam didn't murder Samuel. The group brings in Samuel's mangled body and have Ruthie point out who killed Samuel. She points to Adam. Jen tries to argue that it was self-defense, but Venable isn't convinced. After all, none of his people have harmed them. Jen's lucky Venable is allowing her to speak at all, but don't be fooled. This has nothing to do with her honesty or goodness. If we rewind for a second, these hill Vikings have been stalking this particular group since long before they headed up the mountain, peeking into their SUV and motel room at night. Once on the mountain, the cult watches them run from a rolling tree, and they watch the hikers sleep instead of attacking them in their tent. The Foundation has targeted the hikers, and this is just a kangaroo court. Could be that they need fresh members, could be that they're bored, but it could also mean that Venable's got his eyes on the only thing he's allowing to speak here. Jen should be using his permission to her full advantage, especially when the leader tries to claim that they haven't been hurt by his people. Even if the rolling log that killed Gary was accidental, someone methodically stole their cell phones, and Ruthie lured Adam into a trap in the woods that pulled him away. They also believed that Mila had been taken, and when they demanded Morgan and Samuel let their friend go, they didn't. Telling them that Adam was defending his girlfriend would likely be an honorable excuse too in the eyes of this community. Of course, it probably won't work if this really is a court where they've already made their decision about the group before they even transgressed against the community. As brutal as it may sound, when Jen's explanation doesn't work, it's time to let Adam take the fall for his behavior instead of lying. While they might kill us all anyways, they would likely have already done that when they originally captured us, if getting rid of us was their only goal. Admitting Adam's guilt offers us a slim chance of survival. Sorry, Adam. Venable declares Adam guilty of murder and sentences him to death. Adam suddenly springs out of his restraints and puts a knife to Ruthie's throat. The rest of the group begs him not to make things worse, but he doesn't listen. In the end, Venable distracts him and Ruthie stabs him in the leg. The Foundationists bag Adam and Venable declares the others guilty of bearing false witness. They're sentenced to darkness, whatever that means. Moments later, Venable asks Jen how Samuel was murdered. When she says he was struck in the head, Venable holds up the club that Adam used. Jen makes one last plea to save Adam's life and says killing him is barbaric. The leader tells her that the community was founded to avoid the onslaught of the Civil War, that people of all races and creeds came together to form a township where everything is fair and equal, and punishment is Old Testament. He smashes Adam's head to a bloody pulp. While Adam's body still twitches, the others are led to darkness, a cage where they will hear no evil, see no evil, and speak no evil. Lewis tries to run and gets a knife in the back. Venable then uses a red-hot poker to gouge out his eyes and burn his ears and tongue. As the group goes to do the same to Darius, Jen begs them to reconsider what they're losing. Darius's degrees in sustainable eco-design can help enrich the village. When they ask her what she can bring them, she offers herself as a wife and a potentially healthy mother. Venable warns them that if they try to run, they'll be hunted and brought back to be blinded and thrown into the darkness. At night, Darius is initiated with the men, while Jen is taken to the leader's cabin. Taking Ruthie hostage is a desperate and ultimately pointless bluff unless you're willing to go through with it, and if you use it to your advantage to steadily move towards the door. Getting to the door and then stabbing her might work as a distraction, as they'll need to split their focus to treat her. Of course, Adam has a tendency to run headlong into booby traps and doesn't know where he's going, so yeah, he's dead. When Adam is ultimately tied down for his death sentence, Jen should make her last plea for his life, but in a community like this where tradition is used as an excuse for everything, she should attempt to speak to Venable on his terms. He calls people outside his community savages. Why not remind him that we kill people in retaliation all the time? Does he really want to stoop to our level by killing Adam? She might even try the old platitude, an eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind, and suggest that they should just put him to work instead, like she does in a moment moment for herself and Darius. Jennifer's bargaining is about as haphazard as she could make it, making a case for the community to use Darius' skill as a no-brainer, but why not argue to let her stay as Darius' wife, providing the community with strong children she could then educate. Did she forget that she has two masters? In a world full of art history majors, you're just a barista. In a world with zero art history majors, you're a professor. She could even offer to help them record and preserve their history, or help develop a paper mill. As for Lewis, he would have had no way of knowing what lies inside the darkness. For all we know at this point, it's just a deep dark cage full of things waiting to kill us. But if I were in that situation, instead of running for the door, where there's tons of other mountain men, I would plunge myself into the darkness before they had a chance to blind me. As we'll find out later, if he had, he could have made it out of this place alive. But even as a Hail Mary play, you'd know once you race into the darkness whether they would follow you in. If they did, pick up a rock and use the dark to your advantage, especially to avoid a fate worse than death. We cut forward to Scott's search for Jen. At a bar, the innkeeper tells him about the Foundation, that people who go off the trail never come back. On his way back to the inn, Nate and his redneck buddies attack Scott and warn him to stop looking for his daughter. A cop car pulls up, but instead of helping, the cop takes one look at the outnumbered man and just drives away. If these yokels really wanted to hurt Scott, they would and could easily. But Nate stops in the middle of the fight to give Scott a bizarre warning. He says that Scott's daughter is dead and he doesn't want to find what's left. If Scott wasn't thrumming with adrenaline, he should be able to realize the townings are telling him exactly what he wants to know. There would be no reason to warn Scott like this if his daughter was really dead, so she's alive, likely being kept somewhere nearby. The sheriff, who turns a blind eye, all but confirms this. The bigger issue here isn't that the town knows that this murderous cult is up there. It's that all they've done to try and stop people from going there is beat them up or try to threaten them in bars. Every tree around the base of that mountain should have a giant warning sign. You don't have to say a hill cult will gouge out your eyes. A simple warning, deadly radiation sign would do just fine. Even a no trespassing sign with a big rifle on it will work. Hell, put the sheriff's logo on it to make it look official. Same goes for the cult. If they really wanted people off their land, they'd have warning signs of rotting deer skulls hanging everywhere. Instead of attacking, I tell Nate I promise to leave town in the morning, and then I would actually leave, to return with reinforcements later. I'd come back with forest trackers, mercenaries, veteran snipers, and a pay-for-hire search and rescue canine team. Hell, I'd go through a Haley strategic shooting course, maybe take a couple fieldcraft survival courses too. By the time I came back with more men than this mountain had ever seen, I'd have quad-tube night vision goggles, thermals, a SIG MCX that I had trained with, a suppressor, and so much ammo I'd need an ATV to carry it all. It'd be like Zero Dark 30 crossed with Finn from the 100. In the morning, Scott prepares to hike the mountain. The innkeeper tries to stop him, then offers to help him instead. They drive to meet Ed, a hunter who will take them up the mountain for $5 grand. He shows Scott a nice little souvenir scar he took from a Foundationist years before. Ed tells Scott he'd like to repay the favor. Ed, his son Cooper, and Scott begin their trek. A moment later, Cooper falls into a pit. When Ed and Scott go to lift him up, Ed's foot accidentally triggers a drop trap. Scott narrowly dodges out of the way before the hunters are shish kebabbed. Scott takes Ed's revolver and continues up the mountain until he arrives to the fence of the Foundation and takes a jawbone club to the face. This is what happens when you're bold, brave, and incredibly incompetent. Ed knows this mountain is booby-trapped, so when Cooper falls into the pit, his first instinct should be to survey the surrounding area for traps. If he had, he would have seen the trip rope leading to the massive dead weight above their heads. As for Scott, what is this dude thinking? He is so over his head, it's a literal miracle he made it more than 10 feet farther up the mountain. He just watched as two locals who know these woods like the back of their camo hats were turned into mincemeat in front of him. He needs to haul his ass back down to the car, go find his $5 grand in Ed's house, then go do all the prep work I mentioned 10 seconds ago, training guns and mercs. If this mission has to be done right now, Scott can't afford to leave any tool behind. He should find a stick to lift the dead weight off his guides and retrieve Ed's Mini 14. Each magazine for a Mini can hold between 5 and 30 rounds, and it's likely Cooper has more ammo on his body. Ed probably has more revolver ammo too. Not that much of this matters when you're facing camouflaged guerrillas who know this terrain. When he comes to, Scott finds Darius dressed like Katniss Everdeen, and he's surrounded by the entire entire village. Scott demands to know where his daughter is and fires off 3 warning rounds from Ed's revolver before Jen shoots him in the arm with an arrow. Jen's gone native, or so it seems. Later that night, while the village sleeps, Jen breaks her father out of the shallow log cage. She goes to get Darius, but he's definitely gone native. He tells her these are his people now, but he's willing to let her go. Jen and Scott break for the gate, but find it locked, even though Jen says it's never locked. They turn and find Ruthie standing there. Jen asks Ruthie if she knows of another way out of the village, and Ruthie leads them into the darkness. Jen offers to take Ruthie with her, but Ruthie refuses. Suddenly, Morgan appears pulling a woman out of the darkness. When Morgan calls for help, Jen one-shots him with Scott's gun, then grabs a torch, and she and Scott descend into the darkness, a hellhole full of other victims of the Foundation's barbaric ways, all left to starve after they've been made blind, deaf, and dumb. Many have gone insane. Others have turned cannibal. Jen finds a skeletal Lewis, and Mercy kills him before they move on. Scott simply doesn't have the technical skill or past experience to know not to waste ammo here. The key issue here is counting your shots to know how many you have left when things really hit the fan. Once Jen and Scott follow Ruthie into the darkness, it's a bad call to use their limited ammo to kill Morgan or to mercy kill Lewis. Not only could they have left Lewis here to rescue him later, but the loudness of gunshots is measured in decibels on a logarithmic scale, meaning something that's 10 decibels sounds 10 times as loud as silence, and 20 decibels sounds 100 times louder than silence. Revolvers clock in at 140 decibels, meaning not only are they alerting the entire village to their betrayal, but they're also blowing out their own ears as well, making it harder to hear the people chasing them down the mountain. This is one quest where stealth is not optional. By now, the Viking hillbillies are hot on their trail. Jen and Scott arrive to the ledge above the rock gorge Jen and Darius hit in earlier. Edith leaps out of the shadows and tackles Jen to the ground. She nearly smashes Jen before Jen kicks them both over the ledge 20 feet to a hard stop on the rocky gorge floor. Scott finds a way down into the gorge. Jen rolls off Edith's body and encounters another Foundationist. She takes his knife and disembowels him. After Scott blows Edith's head off, he finds Jen carving out the guy's head like a jack-o'-lantern that owes her money. This ledge is probably how they kept anyone trapped in the darkness from getting away. Although with their eyes intact, Jen and Scott should be either running along the ledge looking for a way around, or turn to face the wall and climb down far enough to leap to the floor. Once Jen plummets off the cliff with Edith, she needs to remember that she's in a horror movie and bash this psycho's head in with a rock to keep her from bouncing back. It's only Scott's adrenaline and revolver that ultimately stops Edith from skewering him later. It's also another bullet wasted that gives away their location to the entire clan. A rock, on the other hand, is silent but deadly. Another Foundationist finds Jen and Scott. Turns out these 6 weeks on the mountain have turned Jen into the archery protagonist from every dystopian novel. She nails him twice in the face with her arrows. Further down the mountain, flashlight beams suddenly pierce the darkness. The redneck barflies have come to rescue them. Turns out Jen's quick thinking in the bar about Nate's yellow eyes saved his life. Jen lowers her bow, only to take a Bowie knife to the back of her thigh. Then one of the rednecks takes a knife to the face. The townies open fire in the woods. As another masked Foundation member goes for the kill, Scott slams an axe into his back. Jen pulls a knife from her leg, and her dad carries her down to Nate's truck. Nate throws a Molotov cocktail that lands at Venable's feet, and they speed away down the mountain. Weeks pass, and everything seems fine, until Jen arrives home to find Venable and Ruthie sitting at the dining table with Jen's family. Jen's stepmom has invited them for dinner to welcome them to the neighborhood. Walking away from her trauma may seem like the healthy thing to do, but Jen knew this was coming, and she should have prepared more thoroughly than just stashing a couple knives in her underwear drawer. She left a murderous cult after murdering the only child of a man who impregnated her. There should be knives and guns hidden in every room of this house. At the very least, she should be packing heat wherever she goes, with a firearm in her purse and a knife on her leg. And after an experience like hers, I'd also be wearing a GPS tracker hidden in a necklace just in case. It also seems like she never told her family about the man who kept her hostage, but Scott knows. It's surprising he hasn't hired some sort of protective detail, at least for the first few months after they return. To be honest, the best defense is offense. I'd have hunted them all down, and only when their village was burned to the ground would I feel peace. Jen seems to have known that Venable would look for her here, in a place where she's living with her entire family family. She's only lucky he came in broad daylight and didn't sneak into the house and kill them all before knocking her out and kidnapping her. At least she has the forethought here to consider the angles of the fight ahead and prevent further collateral damage. Jen asks her stepmom to take the boys out so she and Venable can discuss business. When she gets Venable to promise he'll never return to hurt her family, she walks out with him to find 5 men waiting outside. Jen boards their RV, and as the credits roll, the RV suddenly swerves across the road before crashing into a car. The RV door flies open and a Foundation member tumbles out. Jen leaps onto him and stabs him to death. As another tries to run, she knifes him in the back and stabs him to death too. Ruthie comes out and takes Jen's hand, and they walk away off into the sunset. It's just too bad we didn't get to see that epic fight in the RV. I like to imagine it looked a little something like this. The millennial hikers in this movie could have avoided all of this backwoods drama simply by staying on the marked trail like they were told to at the beginning. That's just good advice, whether you're entering grizzly bear country or the country of a hill cult that likes to set traps for people and then take them to a kangaroo court. If they had stayed on the trail, Gary, Mila, Adam, and Lewis would all still be alive, and Darius wouldn't have Stockholm Syndrome. Once things went sideways, they should have stayed together as a group after Gary's death and searched for a river or stream to take them back to civilization. There were half a dozen forks along this trail that would have allowed most of the group to make it out alive. So I think the Foundation from Wrong Turn was beaten. How would you have beaten the Appalachia's finest? Let me know in the comments. Hit the like button to save a stranger's life. Hit the subscribe button to save your own. Thanks for watching, and remember, Deliverance was a documentary.